Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to the 6th annual OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, and also one of the hosts of Between Taorminas, which is also on OAA TV on Monday nights at 6 p.m. We're going to talk about today some very interesting games happened week one. Of course, we had some big upsets. In there's, of course, one of the big ones is Stony Creek beating Rochester Adams 28-20 last week. Of course, Lake Orion lost to Clinton Township Chippewa Valley 38-35, but they had a really nice ground attack game from Matt Krause, who had 407 yards and 4 touchdowns in the loss. Also, when you look at Ferndale, they made a huge statement, and also a huge statement by Birmingham, by Beverly Hills Willie Groves on beating Birmingham Seaholm 32-19 last week. But first, let's go to the let's talk about some of these games here happened last week. Probably give my quick intakes. First, we'll go from the red. I'm going to say the Clarkson Wolves, of course, they won 24-21 in Macomb, Dakota. You know, they had to overcome they were up 17-0 in the start, and then Macomb, Dakota outscored Clarkson 17-7 late, 21-7 late in that one, and Clarkson survived in that one. But you got to give props to Kurt Richardson for what he did. But Clarkson's defense, they look good early, and then of course they look sloppy late. I think they're going to get a pass this week because I know Bloomfield Hills, they play them this week, and Bloomfield Hills, they look good for about 3 quarters, and they lost to Walled Lake Northern 20-12. Walled Lake Northern, of course, Bloomfield Hills, of course, with Nate Emery. This is a guy who played well, but when you look at it, Walled Lake Northern's got a very good athletic team. Very surprised there in that one. And then, of course, talking about West Bloomfield, first game of the year, they played Dearborn. Dearborn, very average team. West Bloomfield had no problem. I was a little surprised that Tristan Jackson went back to play quarterback and not Michael King. King had it was Robert Powell a couple of years ago, last year, who played quarterback when Tristan Jackson got hurt. Now Jackson's back at quarterback. King's now playing running back. I think that that's a huge deadly combination there. And, of course, they'll just have no problem this week with Troy. We'll talk about next week's game. We'll talk about this week's games coming up. Of course, Lake Orion, we're going to mention them a lot. Of course, team that lost 38-35 to Chippewa Valley. This is a team, in my opinion, they run a lot. They don't have much of a passing game nor a defense. This defense got completely just humiliated by Sean Bunting and Larish Claiborne. Lake Orion just couldn't stop them on the pass, and they gave a double slant, a double reverse play for a touchdown. That was just terrible. When you get outscored 21-0 in the third quarter, that's a huge problem right there. But we'll see what happens with Lake Orion. I think they're going to be okay in the long haul. Of course, Stony Creek, we all know about that upset with them. Rochester Adams, they beat them 28-20 at their place. Adams was up 27 in that game, and Adams ended up losing, and Adams ended up blowing that game. That probably was one of the hugest wins for Brad Zuby. Everybody knows about last year's game with Lake Orion when they beat them 36-7. That was something that a lot of people were shocked about. And then, of course, let's look at Troy Athens, of course, winning 34-31 over Macomb Launch Cruz North. They had to score a touchdown late in that game to win that one. Troy lost 7-3 to Sterling Heights Stevenson. Oxford, of course, winning 28-20. You might have found 3 running backs back. But they have a very good running back who had 127 yards and a touchdown. And also Bloomfield Hills, of course, they lost 28-12 to Walled Lake Northern. And the White, the White was 2-6. Looking at the White, they were 2-6, which was not the greatest when you look at it here. The only 2 teams that won last week were Harrison, 48-12 over Farmington, and North Farmington, 42-0 over Pontiac. And you look at it here, Adams, of course, losing Stony Creek 28-20. Rochester getting Blitzkrieg 42-0 by Lapeer. Oak Park up by 2 scores late, 26-13. Ended up losing 27-26 to Detroit Cass Tech. Birmingham Seaham lost 32-19 to Groves. Royal Oak lost, mind-boggling loss 26-3 to Utica Ford. And, of course, North Farmington's win there in the blue. Avondale won 46-8 over Redford Union. Farmington lost 48-12 to Harrison. Pontiac lost 42-0 to North Farmington. Southfield Lathrop won 35-6 over Detroit Southeastern. Berkeley won 35-7 over Holly. Ferndale won 56-20 over Livonia Clarenceville. Hazel Park lost 44-6 to Warren Fitzgerald. And Birmingham Beverly Hills Lily Girls beat Birmingham Seaham 32-19. I thought the team I was most impressive with, I'm going to be honest, was Ferndale Eagles. First year coach Eric Lloyd has done a very nice job in turning that team around. Livonia Clarenceville last year was 11-1, and Ferndale found a way to win that one, and they won it convincingly. I mean, the Eagles, this is a team, in my opinion, that could be a sleeper. You know, another team I think could be a sleeper in that blue is also is Berkeley. Of course, Bears beat Holly 35-7. That was a shocker right there. That was mind-boggling. And, of course, you know, Groves might have found a sophomore running back, you know, in their game against Birmingham Seahome. I mean, like, I think right now when I look at it here, I think Birmingham Seahome is in big, big trouble in the white, you know, and I think Royal Oak is in a lot of trouble also in the white because Royal Oak, they did not look good against Utica Ford. They were up 3-0 early, gave 26 unanswered, and they got a tough one with Oak Park this week, and that's going to be really, really bad for Royal Oak. I mean, North Farmington, they got to play Seahome this week, which that ought to be an interesting game, you know, right there. And then you'll get my projections coming up in about, and of course, next segment, you know, we're going to talk about this week. And then, of course, Rochester Adams this game, losing to Stony Creek. That was shocking, 28-20. Stony Creek, this is their best win of the year. Big win. I think in their school program, this is the first loss to a Rochester school for Adams coach Tony Petrino, who ended up losing. And this was mind-boggling because it's kind of odd now because Adams plays Southfield this week. Southfield, of course, lost 21-19 to Orchard Lake St. Mary's. And it's kind of odd that somebody is going to be 0-2 in that game. And when you look at that game, no doubt that Southfield is going to be a team that a lot of people said, of course, Adams went to the regional final last year. They turned most of their team back. And yet Adams, of course, right now, I think right now could be on crisis mode. But also Southfield could be in that same boat as well. That one of these teams is going to be 0-2 and looking at a deep, deep hole because you got to play Harrison and you got to play Oak Park. Besides each other, you still got to play Harrison. You got to play Oak Park. You know what I mean? And, of course, looks like North Farmington could be the team that nobody wants to see because of their experience. You know, got to give credit to Kyle Schultz over there at North Farmington for that game. You know, and then, of course, we look at the red, you know, of course, back to the Cougars. This was a huge win. Stony Creek, of course, have a quarterback in Jack Allen who played cornerback last year. He played quarterback his JV year. And also you got Scott Reeder. Those two guys were huge in that game. You got Joe Platts at linebacker. They got a big one this week with Oxford on the road in the blue turf. That's going to be a very interesting game. We'll go over that game in a matter of moments. Of course, we talk about West Bloomfield's win 35-13 over Dearborn at Wayne State. Of course, Clarkson's 24-21 win over Macomb, Dakota. Troy losing 7-3 to an average Sterling Heights Stevenson team. Of course, Sterling Heights Stevenson's got a new coach. I mean, like, it's inexcusable for Troy, especially to give up not to score a touchdown. It's disappointing, I think, for Troy to see them lose that one. And then they just did not look good against Stevenson at Runkle Field. But the game that mind boggles me, of course, is Lake Orion. And actually, let's go to Oxford Romeo first. I mean, like, Oxford, of course, Oxford and Romeo was back and forth late. I mean, like, Oxford, I heard, blocked a kick, PAT attempt, so it was 21-20, and Oxford ended up winning that game. You know, huge win for the Wildcats and Bud Riley. Glacier Wallington was huge. He played well, but they did find a running back. But Oxford's still undersized up front, but they play that time possession ball very, very well. When I look at the blue, I was very disappointed with Hazel Park. They had a lot of opportunities, and new coach and Kyle Riley. They got 44-7 to Warren Fitzgerald. That was just mind-boggling right there. I know it's going to take time for Riley to develop his kids. He's only got 30 kids on his team, but still, it's not an excuse. You know what I mean? And he's going to take his lumps, and it starts They play Avondale this week, and that's going to be god awful. I think it's going to be a terrible matchup there. But another team I'm very disappointed was Farmington. No doubt, Farmington. They had a lot of hype around this team, no doubt. And of course, John Buto. This team's supposed to be good, supposed to be better, and then yet they get whooped by Harrison, 48-12. 48-12. Why? This is terrible. When you look at Harrison, Harrison's a good team. They're a good. They're a good team, but you get embarrassed in your home field, and you get to play Southfield Lates up next, who's an improving crew. That spells trouble, I think, and I think Farmington's in huge, huge trouble. That's what I think, But back to the Red, I think when I look at Lake Orion, in that game, Macomb County officials, I thought they were terrible against the Dragons all night. They called holding calls, illegal block in the back calls, But you can't make the excuse for what happened there. Lake Orion defense clearly lost in the game, and then they couldn't get a stop on 4th and 1. That was just mind-boggling right there. And they couldn't get it. And also they gave a touchdown. They gave a couple bad touchdowns. Of course, the double reverse pass per touchdown. That was just a credit to them. And then, of course, they gave up slant passes. They gave up short passes. That can't happen for this Lake Orion team. Lake Orion, in the last year and a half, has been just completely atrocious defensively. This has not been the same team, I would say, since the Macomb Dakota game 2012. Because when this defense they gave up 28 points in that one. And they gave 35 to Macomb Dakota in that one. They gave up 34 to Detroit Cass Tech. And then of course, last year, we all know about that debacle. They gave up 22.2 points a game last year. And then, and then they gave up 30 points to Oxford last year. Where's his defense been? This defense has not been the same. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if it's the system. I don't know. But this defense has clearly not been a Lake Orion defense. And the problem there, a lot of people look at the secondary, of course, with Lake Orion. Of course, Drew Casey's out for the year. Mike Jarrett's out for the year. It's just been it's been tough to see for Lake Orion. You know what I mean? To see those two type of players hurt. And then to see Lake Orion, you know what I mean? Offensively, Matt Krause goes for 470 yards. School record, 4 touchdowns. 35 points wins you games. It does. But to see this is a one-dimensional offense, and that's a huge problem with this group. And I have a problem with that. You got to look at it here. As a Lake Orion alumni, it's hard to see this team not throw a lot, especially with the athletes they have. When you look at Lake Orion, I still think that this team's got to open it up a little bit more. When you look at the Dragons, you see, this team has got to rely a lot on balance. You can't be a team to rely on one-dimensional. If you're one-dimensional, you ain't going to win. There's no doubt about that, because you're going to see teams cheat up in the box. You can't be predictable. And this team, I think, Lake Orion's the last year and a half, I think, has been very, very predictable. And that's a huge problem right there. I could say the same thing for Clarkston. You know what I mean? Even them. But if you want to win in this league, you got to have balance on both running the ball and passing the ball. And right now, I don't think Lake Orion's got that right now, based on that. If the key in that game, I think, when Lake Orion plays Troy Athens, and Troy Athens, of course, is going to know this. Of course, they got a very good quarterback in Alex Muscat, and running back Devin Terry, and of course, they got a good wide receiver as well. Let's look at it right this. Troy Athens is going to be a very, very interesting test for Lake Orion. There's no doubt about it. But we'll see what happens. We'll go over my projections real shortly in the next topic. We'll talk more football. Of course, when you look at other sports too, girls volleyball, of course, I was at the Lake Orion tournament last week. It was very, very good. Some very good competition. Farmington Hills Mercy, of course, beating Lake Orion in the final. Of course, Lake Orion, I thought Lake Orion looked, they looked really, I think they looked fine. I thought Seaholm looked fine. I thought Oxford looked good, even though they're a young team, but I was shocked the way that North Branch went out when they lost to Mount Morris. Goodness gracious. And then, of course, Novi, Novi was a good team. They played Seaholm tough. Stony Creek under Mandy Moran, she's done a very good job there. building this program up from scratch. And also you got to look at Macomb, Dakota, a very young crew. Of course, let's not forget this team lost Carly Snyder last year, and Tracy Ferguson's going to have to take some lumps this year, unfortunately. I still think Romeo's the class of that MAC Rat this year. No offense to Macomb, Dakota. And then when I look at the OA Rat, of course, I still think it's a 3-team race between Birmingham, Seaholm, Lake Orion, and Clarkston. When I look at Seaholm, they're experienced 10 seniors. When I look at Orion, of course, very experienced team. They still got some experience. Let's not forget but if this team plays consistent, then this team's going to be fine. And then Clarkston, of course, is Taylor Dillinger for new coach. Kelly for Coach Kelly Averill Pinter. Of course, Kelly Averill got married this summer. Of course, now she's known as Kelly Pinter, but I'm still going to call her Kelly Averill Pinter. So let's go with that there. Okay, when we come back here on OAA Now, we're going to talk about Week 2 matchups for the OAA. And, of course, some of the most interesting games coming up this week is here on OAA Now.
As the summer begins to wind down, enjoy the transition into fall by loading up the family and taking a trip to Friendship Park for Barn Days on Saturday, September 13th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. There will be plenty of activities for the whole family, including a petting farm, carnival games, inflatables, farm fresh produce, and a wagon ride. But be forewarned, you may encounter some Yankees and rebels who don't know the Civil War is over. The cost is $5 per vehicle, and proceeds help fund Orion Township's concerts and other events throughout the year. For more information, you can call 248-391-0304, extension 305, or visit oriontownship.org.
Welcome back to OA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, and also one of the hosts of Between Taorminas on ONTV. Of course, we're going to go over some of the key Week 2 matchups coming up. Of course, the new Dragon's Den poll is out. You can take a look at my blog here on the Local Voice and also on the Dragon's Den. You can search it up on Google. Just click Dragon's Den blogger. I think you can check it out on Saginaw Bay at blogspot.com. And where you can see the Dragon's Den projections, and also you can see the Dragon's Den updates coming up. I update it almost every day. So you keep an eye on that. We're gonna go over some of my top 10, the Dragon's Den top 10 for the week. Of course, number 10 I ranked as Groves. Groves was very impressive against the Birmingham Seaholm. They deserve to be right there. Number 9 is Lake Orion, of course. Lake Orion lost 38-35 to Chippewa Valley. This was a team. They still got some questions, especially in the passing game and also defensively when it comes to this game. We'll see what happens there. Of course, number 8 is Avondale. Of course, Avondale smoked Redford Union 46-8. Redford Union is not a very good football team. Of course, number 7 is Southfield. Southfield, I ranked them 9 last week. The Blue Jays, even though they lost to Orchard Lake St. Mary's, this was a game I think that helped them out, and I think they deserved to move up 2 spots even though they lost last week. Number 6, Oak Park Knights, heartbreaking loss to Detroit Cass Tech. It's tough right there to see where they're at, but they'll be all right, I think. Of course, number 5 is West Bloomfield, the Lakers, of course. Impressive win over Dearborn. Their big test will come next week when they play Clarkston at Clarkston, which is going to be very interesting in that one. Number 4 is Oxford, the Wildcats, of course, beating Romeo 28-20. They got a good running game back, and also they got a good consistency right there at quarterback. And number 3 is, when you look at the number 3 is the Stony Creek Cougars. Of course, the Cougars just went up in the rankings. Knocked off Rochester Adams 28-20. we'll see what happens there. They got a tough game with Oxford this week. Number 2 is the Harrison Hawks. They just embarrassed Farmington on a global scale last week. And then number 1, of course, is the Clarkson Wolves. The Wolves beat Macomb Dakota 24-21 last week. Should have no problem this week with Bloomfield Hills. And then they got a tough one next week with West Bloomfield at Clarkston. When I look at the games this week, we're going to go first from division. We're going to go based on division here. We're going to go first. When I look at the games first, we're going to go with Pontiac and Berkeley. Pontiac will be at Berkeley at Hurley Field. This is a bad match for Pontiac. Of course, Berkeley, of course, shocked Holly last week, 31-7. 35-7. This is a game where I think that Holly, I think, is going to help Berkeley in the long haul. I just think that when I look at Pontiac was very disappointing last week. They just did not look good at all. Get 42 points. I think it's going to get much worse before it gets better. In that game, I like Berkeley to blow out Pontiac pretty bad. The next game here we're going to talk about is a very interesting one. It's Southfield Lathrop and Farmington. Of course, this was an OA White game last year. Farmington won 25-6. They had to score 19 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win that one. In this game here, Southfield Lathrop's much improved. This team here led by Reggie Harris, this is a very unique matchup here. And this game, in the games at Farmington, Farmington did not look good last week. Of course, Des Kirkpatrick did not look good. Tyler Collins did not look good. In this game, I'm going to be honest with you, I like Lathrop in this game because Southfield Lathrop's got a lot of talent back. There's no doubt that the Lathrop Chargers, I think that they're in a good spot right now for Keith Stevens. I think this team's going to be 2-0 heading into week 3. The next game we're going to talk about in the blue is, of course, number 10 Groves going to Ferndale to take on the Eagles. This is a tough matchup, I think, for Groves. Ferndale's much improved. They blew out Livonia Clarenceville last week. This is a very hot team playing right now. A lot of people say but I just think in this game I like Groves in this one because they got the quarterback in Zach Van Fossen. They got the cornerback in Brandon Robe and Brandon. I got to figure out his name here. I got the roster here. But I like Groves in this game. I just think that it's going to be a very close game. I think that Ferndale is for real. They're legit under Eric Royal, and I think they're going to Brandon Flaherty's team a lot of problems this week. Next game here we're going to talk about is Hazel Park at number 8 Avondale. This is probably one of the most unique games on the slate. Of course, the last couple of years they've had wild shootouts. 50-48 games, 56-48 games. But last year wasn't really close. It was a blowout for Avondale. Avondale won that game pretty bad, and then they play this year. Hazel Park is just not the same team. They were under Scott Guthrie, and I think Avondale under Steve Deutsch is going to really, really blow them out. I think they have no answer for Josh Hallman. They're not going to have an answer for Avondale's offense. I think Avondale's going to be very impressive again. They're going to blow them out, and I think the home folks are going to be really, really happy here. And then, of course, that is the blue side of things here. Next, we're going to go to the white. Very interesting there when it comes to the white, especially when you look at these games. First game we're going to talk about is Royal Oak against number 6 Oak Park. And Oak Park, of course, this was a team that lost a heartbreaker to Detroit Cass Tech, 27-26. You know that this team is going to be motivated. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be ready to go in front of the home folks of Night Valley. I think that Night Valley is going to be edging and motivating to see this team play. And then, of course, he plays in a Royal Oak team. Of course, Tim Chapman, of course, this was a team I was very disappointed with seeing in Tim Chapman's Ravens. This was a team that I thought was going to beat Utica Ford last week. I thought they were going to play well. They ended up laying an egg. They were up 3-0 early. This team was 4-5 last year. They ended up winning some huge games. And yet to see this team just get completely humiliated by Utica Ford, that's just terrible. That was just unfortunate. And I think right now, when I look at this game, Oak Park's just going to kill Royal Oak pretty bad. And then when I look at Royal Oak's schedule next, the next 3 weeks. They got to play Oak Park this week. They got to go to Southfield, and then they got to host Adams, and that's not going to be, and that's not even saying Harrison yet. So that's going to be just sad and sick to see what happens to Oak. It's going to be really, really bad these next 3 weeks for the Ravens. The next game here we're going to talk about is a interesting one. North Farmington at Birmingham Seaholm. Of course, North Farmington, very experienced team. Of course, Kyle Schultz has done a magnificent job over there at North Farmington. Got some experience playing Seaholm, team they should know well from the blue. Seaholm, very underestimating. I mean, they had a bad loss to Groves last week on the road. You know, they're at home in the Maples Nest, but when I look at this game here, I think experience is going to matter in this one. I like North Farmington in this game over Tommy Shepard and the Maples. I just think that the Raiders are going to be too much for the Maples to overcome, and I just think North Farmington is going to be 2-0 and a nice spot. And I like, you know what I mean? And then, of course, they still got to play the tough part of the schedule, but I think North Farmington is going to be, I think, right now, I would say North Farmington right now is probably the fifth best team right now in the white behind them. Adams, Harrison, Oak Park, and Southfield right now. Next team we're going to talk about is Harrison. It's going to be Rochester against number 2 Harrison. When I look at Rochester, 42-0. That's all I can say. They gave up 42 points to Lapeer. Running clock. It was a bad situation. Turn worse. This is going to get really ugly, I think, for Rochester this week, especially going to Harrison. This is a terrible, terrible match for Eric Vernon and his crew. Harrison, of course, riding high. Of course, Javon Shaw played well in that one. Harrison just embarrassed Farmington on a global scale. Harrison, if they don't put up at least 56 points, I'm going to be very disappointed. I think Harrison blows out Rochester in the worst way possible. And then, of course, the next matchup here, and one of the huge matchups here in the white, I think is going to be Southfield and Rochester Adams. Southfield and Adams, both are 0-1. The loser of this one's going to be 0-2, and I think could be in some huge, huge trouble, especially heading into the rest of the season. When I look at Southfield, there's no doubt that they're talented at the corners. But when I look at the tape, of course, I watched what Fox Sports Detroit has called Friday Night High School Hammer Time. I think that's what it's called. Of course, hoping we get Mickey York here on here. We can talk football. Also with Ron Rubick as well. Send a shout out to those two crew. Those two want to come on here. Feel free to come on. We'll talk OAA football. Of course, we had Keith Dunlap here last week. But back to the Southfield Adams game. This is a very interesting matchup here. The loser of this game is 0-2. Southfield's had horrors at Adams. They have struggled at Adams. They haven't done well. It's been a while since they've won it at Adams. But they won last year over Adams on their home field. But now this game's going to be at Adams. I think Southfield's going to have a lot of problems here in this one. You know what I mean? But when we look at Adams, of course, this is a whole different offense that Southfield's going to see. It's a veer option. Adams runs that veer option perfectly. I'm kind of shocked how what happened last week with Stony Creek, especially when you have a quarterback in Kyle Wood and Clarence and Chance Baraklocks, who did not. You're up 20-7 in that one, and then you ended up losing that game. The Southfield Orchard Lake St. Mary's game last week could have went either way. No doubt it could have went either way. But Adams' loss to Stony Creek is kind of mind-boggling when you look at this situation here. And then, of course, what bothered me was seeing Adams just did not play well. I heard Tony Petrino was really upset over that game. Furious, disappointed. Probably an understatement here, especially when you have a team that went to the regional final last year. And this is the same team, let's remember, that beat Clarkston. This is the same team that beat Clarkson, who ended up winning a state title. And to see him lose like this was just mind-boggling. That was just mind-boggling. When I look at this game here, I like Rochester Adams in this game. I just think that it's a different style of offense South is going to see, especially when they run the veer option. I think they're going to give them problems when I look at it here, but I think it's gonna be a close game. I'm gonna say Adams wins this one 24-21. It's gonna be a very close game. You can see my picks also on the Dragons Den blog coming up, and of course let's go to the OA Red next. Of course you got some huge games here. The first one we're gonna talk about, we're gonna go with Bloomfield Hills against number 1 Clarkston. The Wolves, when I look at Clarkston, this is a team still shaking, I think, on defense. Of course, they looked good early against Macomb, Dakota, but Kurt Richardson said this team had issues finishing games, and they probably won't have problems with it this week because I don't think Bloomfield Hills is going to have a chance against Clarkson. I'd be shocked if Bloomfield Hills stays close to Clarkson or even beats Clarkson, but I just think right now Bloomfield Hills has got to go to Clarkson. It's going to be too much Wolves, too much Kurt Richardson, too much DJ Zulu, etc. Clarkson will be getting ready for that game with West Bloomfield, and that will be a really interesting game right there. Of course, next game we're going to talk about is Troy at number 5 West Bloomfield. The Colts lost 7-3 to Sterling Heights Stevenson at Runkle Field. So, Troy can play defense, but this is a different team that they're playing. West Bloomfield's got more athletes than Troy does, more athletes even than Sterling Heights Stevenson does. When I look at this game, no doubt, I just think this is a mismatch on paper. I tend to favor the Lakers over the Colts. Also, let's remember this. Last year, this was the game that put West Bloomfield on the map. They beat Troy pretty bad last year. Remember, Troy was going through a different stage where they ended up losing. They were not the same team since the fourth quarter of the Lake Orion game last year at Ford Field, and I think that this Troy team will struggle in this game. I just think that in the end, it's going to be too much Lakers, too much. I think they're going to dominate this game and get ready for Clarkston next week, no doubt about that one. Of course, next game we're going to talk about here is number 3 Stony Creek and number 4 Oxford. This one here is a unique game. I think it's a huge game for both teams. But let's look at Stony Creek. Stony Creek under Brad Zuby, of course. Let's remember, this is the same situation they've been in before. Last year, when they beat Lake Orion 36-7, the next week they laid a huge egg against Clarkston. And that was a game that they lost pretty bad. Stony Creek now is in that same situation now, except they beat Adams last week. And now they play Oxford on the blue turf. So this is a really interesting matchup. Could be deja vu for Brad Zuby, and his Cougar team. When you see this game, and of course you got Oxford, who's a time possession team, who likes to pound the rock. Their defense is all right. Defense not great, but I still think when you look at this game, I think it's going to be close. It's going to be much closer than people think. But I'm not impressed with Oxford, but I'm going to give them the win anyway. I think Oxford's going to beat Stony Creek because I think Stony Creek has had a history of letdowns. It would not surprise me if Stony Creek wins this game. And if Stony Creek wins this game, it would be a huge confidence booster, especially heading into their Week 4 matchup, especially when they got to play Clarkston and they got to play Lake Orion Week 6. So, this is a unique matchup here. I think that whoever wins is going to be in really good shape. And I think whoever loses, they're going to be picking it up a little bit, But Oxford, of course, that home schedule, I just think that, it's going to be, the environment's going to be not the greatest, but it's still going to be a hostile environment for Stony Creek. I just like Oxford in that one very, very close because I just think that their offense, led by Glacier Wallington, is going to lead them to victory, I guess. Lead them to victory, And Brad Zuby, of course, the only issue that I have with Stony Creek, being honest with you, is jersey colors. The jersey fashion, their fashion sense, of course. In their win with Adams last week, they wore gold helmet, blue jersey, white pants. He said it was St. Louis Rams. What? Come on, man. That's not the St. Louis Rams. St. Louis they wore yellow pants. They didn't wear gold pants. They still wear it this year. So the only beef I have with Coach Brad Zuby and his Cougar team is the fashion statement. His football team's a very good team. So we'll give some props there. You know what I mean? So, and then the last game, of course, on the football slate is Lake Orion against Troy Athens. Lake Orion ranked number 9. The Dragons then pulled this week. Like I said with the Dragons, this team was just Matt Krause was just an absolute monster. 470 yards, 4 touchdowns against a Chippewa Valley a team that was just I thought was completely gashed by Krause, and then of course this is a team that still lost 38-35. Their defense was just completely atrocious in that game. They just could not, and they also had issues throwing the ball. I mean, like Cameron Kosich did have a touchdown in that game. I mean, like it was the Jalen Wiggins late, but also this was a team that gave up 21 points in the third quarter, and this gave up pass after pass after pass after pass. You can definitely attack this team in the air, and also Lake Orion they don't have much of a passing game this year, and that's mind-boggling. You know, we talked about this earlier about the Dragons, you know, and then of course you got Troy Athens on the other side. Of course, their defense will be really, really excited to just basically see this team. I've looked at Dave Galecki's Detroit News article, of course, saying about his top games, 5 games from week 2. He said Lake Orion Troy Athens was going to be a shootout. It very well could be a shootout because, you know, but if Lake Orion can somehow, I mean, when I look at Troy Athens, this is still a good team, Troy Athens offensively. Defensively, I'm just not sold on this team when you look at it here. I mean, like Macomb Lodge Cruise North last week was pretty. They weren't the greatest team, but they're not a bad team. You know what I mean? When I look at LCN, this is a team that looked good. The Troy Athens, of course, had to score a touchdown late, but also Troy Athens is very good at home. Let's not forget that. And Troy Athens is a team, in my opinion, that could do some damage this game. A lot of people call the Red Hawks a sleeper. Of course, they're 12 in the Dragons' Den poll. I mean, like right now, but when I look at this game, I just think in the end, that Lake Orion, you know, I mean, this is a team that I think is going to bounce back. They're going to find a way to bounce back in this one. I think they're going to win this one I think they're going to win this one by a touchdown. I mean, like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns. I just think that Lake Orion's going to find a way to stop Alex Muscat in this offense. But Muscat is capable of having a very huge game, and he can have that. I mean, like, but the key to this game, I think, is the Dragons' defense, and also I think the key to this game for Troy Athens is can they find that balance, especially when you look at Troy Athens, their wishbone offensive team. This is who usually they'll throw it, you know what I mean? But we'll just see what happens there, right there. But I just think in the end, I like Lake Orion in this game because of their overall talent. I just think, but if they can develop a passing game, it's gonna make it much easier for the Dragons But for the Red Hawks, if they shut down the run, if you shut down the run against Lake Orion, you pretty much have them stopped. That's pretty much what it is. All right. When we come back, we're gonna talk more sports here on OAA Now.
Enjoy farm fresh produce, baked goods, art, and more at the 2014 Lake Orion Farmers Market sponsored by Crittenden Hospital. Walk, bike, or drive to the Orion Arts Center located at 115 South Anderson Street. Parents can purchase products grown and made locally while kids take part in fun activities like horseshoes and arts and crafts. Come early and come often as vendors change from week to week as new crops come into season. The Lake Orion Farmers Market is held every Wednesday from 2 to 7 p.m. through October 22nd. For more information or to sign up as a vendor, visit downtownlakeorion.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragons' Den, and also host of the show Between Terminas on ON TV. We got some other sports we're going to talk about here on OAA Now. We got soccer, of course. If you're a Lake Orion Dragons soccer fan, you're going to love this. Of course, this was a team, and they beat Avondale last night. Huge win for the Dragons, heading into a huge showdown tomorrow night with Utica Eisenhower. Of course, Utica Eisenhower is a team that usually is a pretty good team. They're talented, but also when I look at the rest of the soccer world, I was very shocked that I was surprised that Troy Athens got beat by they lost last week. They lost yesterday, and of course, Stony Creek and Adams, they're both rolling right now as we speak. But when you look at it here, I think this is Lake Orion's to lose. When you look at the Dragons, no doubt. This is a team, I think, when you look at the soccer team, of course, unique. I mean, but they got offense, they got some good defense, they got some good goaltending. I mean, they got the things, but you're in a tough district, and that's not going to be an easy district heading into the rest of the year. When you look at it, of course, Troy, of course, they're still going to be there too. I mean, but we'll see what happens there in soccer. And of course, when you look at the, of course, let's go to another sport we haven't talked much about, and that's cross country. Both Lake Orion teams were both in the at Rochester Adams. Of course, Adams won that. Very surprised at the high in the boys, and that was mind-boggling because usually Rochester Adams, they had a nice year, 2007 to 2009. I mean, they had a nice year in track, and they also had a nice year in cross country. But to see Adams win their own invitational, that was shocking right there, and especially seeing beating Lake Orion, that was a question. That was a shocking thing there. And of course, when you look at the girls' side, of course, Debbie Sherman does a very good job with her team, along with Dave Hudson, her assistant. I was curious to see their girls took second place. You know what I mean? They lost to Utica Eisenhower. Utica Eisenhower, of course, is also a good cross country team, also a good track team as well. Very balanced, very So when I look at cross country, and then of course you got the Jamboree coming up. I mean, in that league, you gotta see Seaholm in there. Of course, I still think when I look at the boys' side, I still think Lake Orion's favored. You got Seaholm in there, you got Adams in there. It'll be a very interesting one. In the girls' side, I just think when I look at it here, I just think Lake Orion is one of the favorites there. But you can't count out Clarkston. You know what I mean? This is a team who's very, very good. Adams also balanced this girls' team out too, so I think Adams is not bad. And they're going to be a huge threat. But also Seaholm. Let's not forget the Maples, their girls' team. Of course, last year was very, very good. When you look at their distance team a year ago, they were very, very good. Of course, when you look at the girls' side of things, this is a very unique team that Seaholm has. Very athletic, but and of course swimming right now. It's also underway as we speak. Of course, you got the Bloomfield Hills. You got Birmingham, Beverly Hills, Birmingham Seaholm, Beverly Hills, Willie Groves. They're rolling along right now, and of course, Lake Orion's doing well. They just won a tournament a couple weeks ago. Big kudos there. But like I said, the season is getting underway right now as we speak. Talked about some big games in football. Of course, some soccer, coming up. You got league play coming up soon. It'll be a good one. The kids, I know everybody's in school, everybody's starting up. They're huge opportunities, you know what I mean? To do well, not only in the athletic fields, but also in the classroom. We got to give some love. We got to give some love to the freshman JV teams, of course, here on away now, of course. We'll also give some love there also. But, we go back, and of course, Boris Volleyball, we talked earlier about the Lake Orion Invitational. Of course, league play starts in 2 weeks. To be very interesting. A team that I forgot to mention on there about volleyball with Rochester Adams. This team, of course, under our Gardner's got this team's better than people think, but they got consistency issues. There's no doubt about that. And even Coach Eric Gardner admits it with this team that this is not. They're not a consistent team right now. But I think when you look at the white in girls volleyball, of course, you got to beat Troy Athens, you got to beat Groves, and you got to beat Royal Oak. There's no doubt that that this is an opportunity, I think, for Groves, for Adams, I think, to do some damage. And also, when you look at that city tournament coming up at the end of the year, of course, that'll be a fun tournament. I think Stony Creek may be favored there. And Also, you got Rochester, Hills, Luther, Northwestern there, along with the three Rochesters, Rochester, Adams, and Stony Creek. I did hear in the news lately that Adams did name a new girls basketball coach. Not sure the name, but I know it was a former player. I heard was we'll find out more information on that. Played under Fran Swozich, of course. Fran leaving the program in girls basketball now. He's still going to coach softball over there at Adams. So I'm curious to see what they do. I mean, like, normally what I thought, being honest with you, I thought Brad Crichton would have got the job because he knew a couple of those. He coached, I know, middle school at Van Heusen, and then but then again, he is a teacher at Hart, so Hart Middle School in Rochester, and that's right next door to Stony Creek. So it's very interesting there to see what happens there, and of course, it'll be a very interesting year coming up in girls basketball. A lot of good teams. You know what I mean? I think the league in girls is balanced, more formidable. Sorry about that. And I just think that when you look at the league, I just think it's more balanced than you think heading into the winter. I mean, like, but you'll keep an eye on the winter here and that one here too. But others, you know, you got to look at other teams like you got to look at when you look at the football games this week, I'm very curious to see a couple of teams play. I mean, like, of course, Stony Creek and Oxford, that's a huge game right there. When you look at that one, of course, the question for me is, can Stony Creek find a way to overcome winning a huge game last week and then lose, and then, like, winning that second game to have a 2-game winning streak? You know what I mean? If they can beat Oxford, then this team, I know they're no joke this year. They're no joke. And I just think that when I look at this game with Stony Creek and Oxford, I just think that it's going to be key in that one. I just think that and Oxford, of course, this is a team, you know, I don't think they've seen a pressure defense like Stony Creek. I don't think that they have seen what Stony Creek's going to do. I think that their defense, especially their linebackers up front led by Joe Platts, is going to give Glacier Wellington problems. I know in that game last week for Oxford ended up blocking a punt. You know, he blocked the punt. That ended up leading to a touchdown in that game with Romeo. I mean, like, that game really surprised me with Romeo because, Romeo was a team that last year beat Lake Orion in the playoffs. That was a game that kind of surprised me. I mean, like, a lot. But when I looked at the schedule, I mean, like, Romeo, of course, this is a team I think is going to benefit from being in the MAC White. I mean, like, I'm also curious to see also out of the OAA. I'm curious to see how Macomb, Dakota plays Chippewa Valley. Of course, it's a rivalry game right there. It's at Chippewa Valley. When I look at that game, I just think that when looking at that game, I just think, I know both these teams very well. Of course, Macomb, Dakota did very well against Chippewa Valley. The last 8 years. But in this game, I just think that I like Chippewa Valley in this one over Macomb, Dakota. And it'll be something if Macomb, Dakota starts 0-2. You know what I mean? That would be odd to see a state power start 0-2. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of state power teams in danger of going 0-2. We know one for sure will be 0-2, either be Southfield or Rochester. Adams, no doubt in that game. I mean, like, if Adams goes 0-2, then that's going to be just mind-boggling, especially seeing where they're at. And, of course, if Southfield goes 0-2, then it's going to be mind-boggling to see where they go from there, especially when you look at Southfield's schedule. Of course, for Southfield, I mean, that game at North Farmington week 4, they better be very careful in that one. I just think Southfield's got to be very, very careful in that game. I just think, and then, of course, because that is a trap game right there. Of course, and then that next week in week 5, they play Harris. They play home against Harrison, and that's going to be an interesting game. I think. But if I'm Adams, you know what I mean. You play for Adams. They got to be careful too, because I think Seaholm's a trap game for them, and also they got to play Oak Park. Week 5, and that's not going. And Harrison week 6, and that's going to be tough on them. But I just think when I look at North Farmington, I still think they're going to surprise some people. If they if they could pull off an upset or two, because I can see North Farmington really doing some damage this year heading into the year. I just think that North Farmington for some reason could be they're a playoff team. They could be one, but also when you look at the Raiders, I mean, like, they're and let's not forget they got a strong defense as well. North Farmington could be, but when I look at Lake Orion, when I look at Lake Orion, if this is the game, I think it's a must-win for the Dragons. If the Dragons go to 0-2, then I could pretty much say you can kiss the playoffs goodbye for this team. I mean, like, if they don't win this game against Troy Athens, because you still got to play, Oxford week 4, you got to play West Bloomfield week 5, and you got to play Stony Creek week 6. If Lake Orion lost to Troy Athens in that game, I just think that this team is in a lot of trouble. I mean, like, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, when I look at a team like Troy Athens, you know what I mean? Troy Athens, of course, they had huge win last week with Macomb Latch Cruise North. I mean, like, when I look at Athens, of course, they got to play Oxford next week. They got to play West Bloomfield in 2 weeks. So that's going to be a tough. So I think if this is a must-win game, I think for Athens too in this case, is because Athens knows that they got to play. They got to play Oxford next week, and they got to play at West Bloomfield. And those are 2 tough games right there. So I think whoever wins that Lake Orion Troy Athens game, I think is going to be in very, very good shape. I think heading into the rest of the season, I still think Lake Orion wins this game because I think that they're more. I just think that Troy Athens got no answer for Matthew Krause. But I just think when I look at this game, it's gonna be a good one. I think it's gonna be a good one. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a 1 or 2 touchdown game, or even a very close game like a field goal or 2. But I just still like Lake Orion in that game over Troy Athens in that one. Okay, before we have final thoughts here on OA Now, we got the season still going on. Of course, OA, the football leagues have started going on here. Of course, we all know in other sports, got the Lions playing this week on Monday Night Football against the Giants. I mean, like, that'll be a very unique game right there. Of course, got Michigan State against Oregon. I think Oregon wins that one by a field goal. And then, of course, you got Michigan and Notre Dame. Of course, I like Notre Dame in that one over Michigan. I just think that Ever Golston's going to be a huge, huge factor in that one. Okay, now, and also let's not forget they have a local product from Plymouth in Kyle Brenza, who, of course, Lake Orion fans remember, especially from the 2010 state finals. Of course, he was the kicker. But also in Michigan, they got Brendan Byer, who played on that team, too. But of course, we'll see what happens. I wish everybody, of course, the best of luck to your teams this week. Everybody in the OA, of course, stay safe. I've been hearing the weather forecast could be stormy a little bit Friday night, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's some games Saturday. It'll be a better day, but you never know. But you never know what the weather forecast, what it brings and all that. Anyway, I am Sammy Taormina, signing off here on OA Now.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.